And a very happy day, ladies and gentlemen. Tim Burgess with Maximizing Results again, back with Think and Grow Rich. And in this video, we'll go through Desire Part 4. And we'll wrap up the chapter today. Now, from the very beginning of the chapter till now, let's run a quick synopsis where we talked about how Edwin Barnes, when he got off of the freight train, how he may have resembled a tramp, but his thoughts were those of a king. And as he made his way from the tracks to the Edison offices, he saw himself standing in Edison's presence, demanding the all-consuming obsession of his life, which was to be the business associate of the great inventor. And then we talked about the 6 steps and how simple they are. The 6 steps are truly, they're as easy as the instructions on the back of a cake box. But the only thing that you and I have to do really is decide, will we exercise the intelligence that we have to implement those 6 steps? Because they're not hard, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, what do we want? What are we giving in return? What's the date? Create a definite plan and begin at once, whether you're ready or not. Write a clear, concise statement of steps 1 through 4. And then read that statement out loud once before you go to bed and as soon as you wake up. I mean, we're not talking rocket science. You don't have to go to Ivy League school and get an education to do this. And oh, by the way, this is what massively successful people have the habit of doing. They think about their goals all the time. And then we got out of the 6 steps and we talked about how, you know, you don't have to be ridiculous or credulous or anything like that to apply them. But you do have to use sufficient imagination to enable us to see and to feel and to believe ourselves already in possession of that which we desire. And then we talked about how really, when Napoleon wrote the book in 1937, he came out of the Great Depression. We're coming out of a great adversity right now in this time of our lives. So really what he's writing in 1937 is just as valid today as it was then, as he talks about how unborn opportunities are right before us in abundance, right here, right now. And because of the adversity that we went through, that really has given us more opportunity if we get our mind right. But unfortunately, too many people are stuck in doom and gloom. They've entered a state of depression because they really don't have a true desire from within that they're going after. And remember, he talked about how he says, awake, arise, and assert yourself, you dreamers of the world. Your star is now in the ascendancy. We ended the last video with right in that. He said, the world is filled with an abundance of opportunity which the dreamers of the past never knew. That was 1937. That is absolutely valid today. No question about it. He says, a burning desire to be and to do is the starting point from which the dreamer must take off. This next sentence is very important. Make sure you catch this one. Dreams are not born of indifference, laziness, or lack of ambition. Dreams are not born of indifference, laziness, or lack of ambition. So your dreams weren't born that way. He says the world no longer scoffs at the dreamer, nor calls him impractical. Well, today it might, because we unfortunately, there is a bit of a closed mind society. However, it should be an open mind society. Pry the doors of the mind open and realize that everything that you truly desire, you can have. Now, you can't have it all, but you can have whatever you want. He says, if you have been disappointed, you have undergone defeat during the Depression. We have undergone defeat during the recent adversities in our own life. You have felt the great heart within you crushed until it bled. Take courage, for these experiences have tempered the spiritual metal of which you are made. They are assets of incomparable value. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that's a shift in mindset. That's absolutely a shift in the way we think, to believe that what we've gone through is an asset. Yeah, it is a shift in the way we think. And I can only tell you, once we develop that way of thinking of finding the assets, finding the good even in the bad. Find the good, look for it. See, it changes the way we feel when we find the good. When that's the habit. Remember, thoughts in there cause feelings in here, which causes action over there, right? Yeah. So thoughts, feelings, action. So we want to be in control of the way we feel. The turning point in the lives of those who succeed usually comes at the moment of some crisis through which they are introduced to their other selves. See, ladies and gentlemen, if you're going through some moment of crisis in your life right now, go back to your desire. Focus on what you want. I'm not saying you don't have things to deal with. I'm not saying there's not shit going on. I'm not saying the world's a hunky-dory place. We understand that there's a lot of stuff going on in the world that is not good. I get it. But I can only control what goes on here in my own mind, which then ultimately controls how I feel, which ultimately then controls what the hell I do in the day. And watching the news and getting caught up in doom and gloom is not going to create a feel good. It's just not. Napoleon goes into talking about several individuals that at that time you would probably know their name. But once again, the sum and the substance of what he's talking about is that every one of these people, every one of them, from a guy named John Bunyan to O. Henry to Edison, to Charles Dickens, to Helen Keller, to Robert Burns, to Booker T. Washington. He talks about Beethoven and Milton. Every one of these people, their names will endure as long as time does, because they dreamed and translated their dreams into organized thought. They dreamed. You dream. Now translate that dream into organized thought. You do that by following the 6 steps. Once again, it's not difficult. It's not hard. It's not rocket science. There is nothing hard about this. It is so elementary, anybody can do it. And that's what gave this kid right here that quit school in the 8th grade the hope that I could actually do something really cool with my life if I chose to, and if I took intelligent action. See, all of us take action, but is it intelligent action based on our desire to move us in the direction that we want to go? He says, before passing to the next chapter, kindle anew in your mind the fire of hope, faith, courage, and tolerance. He says, if you have these states of mind and a working knowledge of the principles described, all else that you need will come to you when you are ready for it. When you are ready for it. So are you ready and truly prepared to receive the good that you desire? Do you have the necessary amount of faith from within that you can actually do it? Now, some of you might right there say, well, of course I do. Well, of course you don't. Or you would already be doing it and you would already have it. He says there is a difference between wishing for a thing and being ready to receive it. No one is ready for a thing until he believes he can acquire it. Belief. The state of mind must be belief, not mere hope or wish. And open-mindedness is essential for belief. Closed minds do not inspire faith, courage, and belief. A closed mind doesn't do that. An open mind does. He says, remember, no more effort is required to aim high in life, to demand abundance and prosperity than is required to accept misery and poverty. No more effort is required to aim high in life, demand abundance and prosperity than is required to accept misery and poverty. My first mentor taught me that. I didn't understand it at the time, but he said, Tim, it's easier to get really wealthy in this game we call life than it is to just get by. So what the hell are you talking about? He said, think for a minute. Wow, I had never done that prior to meeting him. He said, how many people do you know who are truly working to get wealthy, that are moving in the direction of wealth in all areas of their life? I thought, shoot, man, I didn't know but 1 or 2 people. In all of the circle of influence at the time, 1 or 2 people maybe. He said, how many people do you know trying to get by? Everybody. He said, see, I told you, it's easier to get wealthy than it is to get by. There's much more competition trying to get by. And that hit me like a ton of bricks, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully it hit you that way too. And it doesn't matter what you're doing. Even if you're working for someone else, it doesn't matter. You can still get wealthy. Get your mindset right. Get your mindset right. There's a difference between wishing for a thing and being ready to receive it. Remember, no more effort is required to aim high, to demand abundance and prosperity than is required to accept misery and poverty. A great poet has correctly stated this universal truth through these lines. This is a fantastic poem. I love this poem because it says everything about this chapter. Really, it does, wrapped up in this one poem. It says, I bargained with life for a penny, and life would pay no more. However, I begged at evening when I counted my scanty store. For life is a just employer. He gives you what you ask. But once you have set the wages, why, you must bear the task. I worked for a menial's hire, only to learn dismayed that any wage I had asked of life, life would have willingly paid. He goes into a story about how desire outwits Mother Nature, and it's a story about his son Blair. I'm going to paraphrase the story for you, and by all means read it word for word. And he talks about, as a fitting climax of this chapter, I wish to introduce you to one of the most unusual persons I have ever known. I first saw him 24 years ago, a few minutes after he was born. He came into the world without any physical signs of ears, and the doctor admitted, when pressed for an opinion, that the child might be deaf and mute for life. Napoleon said, "Oh, no. He says, I challenged the doctor's opinion. I had the right to do so. I was the child's father. I too reached a decision and rendered an opinion. But I expressed the opinion silently in the secrecy of my own heart. I decided that my son would hear and speak. Nature could send me a child without ears, but nature could not induce me to accept the reality of the affliction." Now, most people right there, you might even turn this book off. My gosh, Napoleon Hill has lost his mind. He found his mind. The rest of us are still looking to find ours. But he had a right to that. He says, in my own mind, I knew that my son would hear and speak. How? I was not sure, but I was sure there must be a way, and I knew I would find it. So he desired for his son to be able to be a normal little boy, just like all the other little boys, so badly and so desperately and so deeply. It was an all-consuming obsession. That's all he thought about. He didn't think about the affliction. He thought about him just being a normal little boy. And there's many things that happened. And the first thing was he wanted to transplant in his own son's mind that burning desire for ways and means of conveying sound to his brain without ears. So he had to find a way. How is he going to transmit that thought from him into his son? What could he do? I don't know. As soon as the child was old enough to cooperate, Napoleon says, I would fill his mind so completely with the burning desire to hear that nature would, by methods of her own, translate it into physical reality. Oh, really? Really? All this thinking took place in my own mind, but I spoke of it to no one. Every day I renewed the pledge I had made to myself, not to accept a deaf mute for a son. Napoleon just refused to accept what Mother Nature had said. Now I know some of you right now are going, this guy's batshit crazy. I get it. But if you've been in the study of this book for a while, you know that what he's doing here and the program that he's placing upon his son, and the son's name was Blair, is something that each and every one of us can do with our children to convince them of the true power they have from within. Think about that for a minute. As he grew older, Blair, and began to take notice of things around him, we observed that he had a slight degree of hearing. When he reached age when children usually begin talking, he made no attempt to speak, but we could tell by his action that he could hear certain sounds slightly. That's all Napoleon needed. That's all Napoleon needed to give him the hope to continue. And through a chain of events, they bought a record player. They called it a Victrola at the time. They bought a record player. And by clenching his teeth on the case of the record player, he could pick up the sounds. And then they discovered that if they did a certain type of a hearing aid attached to, I believe, the mastoid bone, that he actually could hear just like you and I. So Napoleon's desire transmuted into nothing, right? Or transmitted into nothing. It's just coincidence. Well, if you want to believe that, that's fine. That's fine. I'm not here to argue with anybody. But Blair, not only was we would call him handicapped or had the affliction of no ears, Napoleon convinced him that he could turn that into an asset of great proportions. People would look favorably upon him and do nicer things to him because of this affliction, and they did. And this young man was industrious. He took action, took the initiative. Read the story. Please read the story. And the biggest lesson from this, and it's in bold print, he says, every adversity brings with it the seed of an equivalent advantage. Every adversity brings with it the seed of an equivalent advantage. Is that the way you look at adversity? Or do you get caught up in the adversity? This story goes on and on and on. He gets into absolute great detail in the story. And once again, you should read it. We won't take time to do that now, but the sum and substance is a baby was born with no ears, no sign of hearing. Napoleon refused to go through the normal processes that all other families would go through with a child born that way. He refused to let him learn sign language. He refused to put him in special education courses or classes. He went to a normal school, and he refused, and Blair came out with 100% hearing, and was very, very successful in his life. And once again, you can call it coincidence if you want. I don't think so. So how can one harness and use the power of desire? How can one harness and use the power of desire? This has been answered through this and the subsequent chapters of this book. This message is going out to the world at the end of the longest and perhaps the most devastating depression America has ever known. What have we just gone through? It is reasonable to presume that the message may come to the attention of many who have been wounded by the depression, those who have lost their fortunes, others who have lost their positions, and great numbers who must reorganize their plans and stage a comeback. Are you telling me we are not living that right now? Yes, we are. To all these, I wish to convey the thought that all achievement, no matter what may be its nature or its purpose, must begin with an intense, burning desire for something definite. It must begin that way. Through some strange and powerful principle of mental chemistry, which she has never divulged, nature wraps up in the impulse of a strong desire that something which recognizes no such word as impossible and accepts no such reality as failure. Ladies and gentlemen, we've just completed the chapter on desire, which is the first step in building the foundation underneath a really, really, really strong life. Foundation under your business, foundation under your relationships, foundation under your fulfillment in life, foundation under whatever, fill in the blank. So do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification button, find us on Facebook, leave us a comment, like us, share us. People need this message, especially today. As I'm going through this book today, I'm just going in my mind, it's how appropriate is this material right now for what we're experiencing in this game we call life. The adversities that have held us back, set us back, whatever word you want to use. And ladies and gentlemen, without question, we've got to keep our mind right. We've got to not allow ourselves to blow around on a pond like a leaf in a windstorm. Your definite major purpose, your true burning desire will stop that from happening. As always, I want to thank Joe. Everybody say thank you to Joe. Without Joe, we wouldn't be here. He's an absolute inspiration to me, and he has taken this material and started at scratch with absolutely nothing but an idea. And he's created a mega $1 million net worth for him and his family. And we'll have Joe on a video. We'll have Joe in an interview for you so you guys can get to meet Joe. But do me a favor, say thank you to Joe. And as always, we wish for this day to be the very best day you have ever experienced in this game we call life. Yesterday doesn't matter. Tomorrow isn't here, but right now does matter. So make a decision. Make a decision to hold a positive image on the screen of your mind and live this life as it's the best day you've ever experienced. Tonight, when you put your head on the pillow, please do so with a mind full of peace. Remember, calmness of mind is one of the beautiful jewels of wisdom. And may God bless each and every one of you. Have a fabulous day.